And then with the product, I have a plan that gives me a bit of a roadmap to incrementally release value over time and expand my market and grow into different areas. And at every release, I evaluate whether that's a good roadmap or not. There's a constant chain of planning here, and the planning has different reasons behind it. And we don't want to simplify things by saying there's just one development cycle and planning is the same every time. It's not. There's a term that's used by the extreme programming community that was called YAGRI, which stands for You Ain't Gonna Need It. And it's a cautionary term for developers to keep their design simple. The cautionary term I use for product owners or people in the customer role that are planning the product is to really leverage the iteration and remember that you ain't going to release it next iteration. You have a choice to put a story into the iteration with the intent of learning something, not the intent of shipping it. And it's okay to do that. So if I explain this to Roger, and I have many times, we still come up with the problem of, look, I've got a budget and I've got people that need things and I can't tell them, you'll get what you get when you get it. It's not a helpful strategy. And even if it might be the truth in some cases, we need some more strategy other than we're just going to do our best and keep doing it. So these are the strategies that I was to remind me, to remind you that it isn't just about the software. One of my larger customers produces software as part of a larger offering that they produce. And they synchronize the release of the software with marketing and with training. And one of their recent releases rolled this piece of software out in the Japanese market, which had to synchronize the release with lots of workshops that were going on in Japan to introduce the software to new Japanese buyers for the product. And if we say, gosh, we're going to slip the schedule by a few weeks, this costs a lot of time and money. The development of the software isn't the only line item in our budget, so it isn't okay to be late all the time. So it seems logical that we need to know what we need before we can estimate it. But we can't, and we know we can't. The only time we know exactly what we need is after we built it. And we can always build the second one a lot faster than we built the first one, which is why manufacturing processes work a bit better than software development processes do, because when we manufacture a car or a pencil or even a house that goes into a subdivision, we built that one before or built something very much like it before. So let's talk about how Roger might deal with three strategies. Let me keep an eye on my time here. And let's tell some stories of some other people that do a good job with this. Let's first talk about John. Remember how to click that. John's kind of single-minded. John knows it's not about the scope. It's not about the stuff that I'm building. It's about the benefit that I get. And for John, the benefit is measured in dollars. Lately in Canadian dollars more than US dollars. They're a bit more dependable. He looks at the scope that they're delivering, but he needs to follow it back to his source. He knows that he's got these user stories at the bottom that will build some kind of software, but he knows that software is for people that will use it. That's why they're called users. And we know that we don't get value out of software unless people use it. So he knows that he's got to at least identify who those people are. And ultimately, when people use this software, if we're selling the software commercially, it's because they made a buying decision to buy it. Or if they're internal inside of our organization, it's because them using the software saves us some money, or earns us some money, or does something to affect our bottom line. So we know that the root of this software is a good idea that will earn us some money. And John knows that there are many that get rolled up into a piece of software. He knows that if he can write these down and call them out, that he can have a little bit more control than he had in the past. He knows that if he takes one of these goals that earn money off the table, that it may pull potentially some of these users or user roles off the table and pull a lot of scope out. He knows that if he takes another one out, it may pull more users out and pull more scope out. And he knows that if he pulls all these users off the table, we'll end up with a very small scope. We'll meet this goal, and John can clearly advertise, this is the goal we're shooting for, this is how we're going to earn money, and this is all it's going to take to do it. And by knowing what the goals are, John can winnow down his backlog. He can do a better job or a more effective job prioritizing. Fewer goals equal less software, and being clear about the goals has been John's approach for getting his backlog down and making sure nothing leaks into the backlog that isn't serving his particular product goal or business goal. This is Paul. It's hard to find a good picture of Paul, so I had to crop an old one. There's a little Garfunkel left in the upper right corner. Paul is a problem.
50 ways to leave your lover. 50 ways to leave your lover. You just slip out the back, Jack. Make a new plan, Stan. You don't need to be coy, Roy. Just get yourself free. Hop on the bus.
Paul knows he's got options. With this particular user story, he's got at least 50 options. And he knows that for any given use of software, any given thing he's trying to accomplish, that there's a lot of different ways to satisfy it. And he knows that if he defers that decision to the last responsible moment, he can make a choice based upon what he's learned at that point. So instead of writing user stories about exactly what to do, he writes user stories about exactly what he intends to accomplish. He might write a user story about leaving a lover versus slipping out back Jack. He knows he's got a lot of options, and it's because he's familiar with this mental model. He's familiar with how people use stuff. So here's a simple model. Paul knows that people use software because they have some sort of problem or goal that they're trying to achieve. They've got sort of some end state they're trying to get to. They know that if they have a goal to be happier or to have more money, that they need to act. They need to do something. They need to take some action, and it's usually with some kind of, with something in the world, a tool, a person, a piece of software, a paper clip. And when they take some sort of action, they'll evaluate whether that action worked. And their first evaluation is, did that action work the way I expected it to? And if it doesn't, they might perform that action again, or try another action, but they'll try and get that action met. There's something that happens in people's brains when they do this, that they do some sort of action, and if it gets the desired effect, they'll wait for the response, and if it doesn't, they won't. And this is why people tap on elevator buttons repeatedly, because they never come when you push the button, or nothing happens fast enough. But once the action happens, once we actually get some evidence that the elevator is moving, or it will come, or the door will open, we start to evaluate our goal. Are we happy? Did we get what we want? And then if not, we take some more action, and then eventually we evaluate again and go through this loop until we really realize that we've met our goal. So Paul knows it's about this goal, this doing things that get me something, and I might take any number of actions in order to reach that goal. So it is sort of a simple model of goal, and I'm going to put task here, I mean user tasks, things that people do, and some tools or things they manipulate in the